こんにちは、ピーチ桃子です。どうぞマーベルカードコレクターズポッドキャストを楽しんでください。
Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Taylor, and welcome to the Marvel Card Collectors Podcast, brought to you by the Marvel Cards Fan Collective. You can find our two groups on Facebook, details of which are at the end of the podcast, so come check us out. With me is my co-pilot in all things Marvel cards, the indescribable yet desirable Norin Rad.
Hey, everybody. Hey, guys.
Oh, I'm loving these intros.
They are getting better. I'm very much enjoying them.
They are. I've written a few down. We've got a few. Got to give a special shout out to all of the artists and creators who've kindly agreed to give us some little audio stings of support that we've edited onto the front of these podcasts.
Yeah, seriously, much appreciated for everything you guys, everything you artists do for us.
Yeah,
it's so nice of you guys to go out of your way.
So, thank you for that. Hopefully, we'll have some more exciting ones coming up. For you, and we'll have some guests on. Some artist guests would be nice. Some of the people that we've talked about in previous episodes from maybe Upper Deck or Rittenhouse, or
I think interviewing artists, collectors, people from the industry, designers, that's kind of the future of the show, is having them on and having those conversations.
Exactly.
And then also doing artist spotlights on sets coming up. So the latest news, things that are happening in the market as well.
Yeah.
A little bit of everything. Yeah.
Tee us off. What are we talking about this week, Norin?
So I figured what we'll talk about today is card investing. We'll go ahead and look at some of the different sets, artists, what makes certain cards valuable on the third market, on the buyer's market, on eBay and other sites of sort. And we'll talk about low print runs. Really what's happening right now in the comic book side of collecting is people are stacking or grade jumping on CGC comics. So you'll have someone buy a 1.5 of a particular first appearance, wait for the price to jump, and then they'll go ahead and invest in the higher price grade, and they're stacking. So investing is really becoming kind of a highlighted section of the hobby, unlike before. More people are buying into it, more people are investing. And I think a lot of IPs are hitting their 10-year mark or their 5-year mark, or like Pokemon or all these other kind of cards where you realize the franchise is not going to die out. And it's going to stay popular, especially with Marvel's movie releases and being bought by Disney. It's a forever, Spider-Man's always going to exist. So the investment is solid now. And I think, I don't know when it's going to bleed over to trading cards, because the hobby is still, it's just starting to get Marvel Masterpiece 2016. Is that the 11th?
That was the 9th.
That's the 9th. So we're getting on 10. So it seems to me like people are going to start trusting that these are the sets that there will always be a Marvel Masterpiece set. You'll always have something released. So I think we're
10 of them.
Yeah. So I think we're getting into that kind of conversation now. And I think there's some really cool questions we can ask. And quick disclaimer before I give it back to Ian here, because I'm definitely taking this conversation myself. These are just a disclaimer. These are our opinions. This is my opinion as a collector. I've seen certain things happen between other collectors, knowing tons of other collectors. So whatever we say here is just an opinion. This is not set in stone. There are certain things you can see with sold listings and print runs and low print runs, but by any means, if you are a collector of one particular thing, or you like doing one particular thing with your collection, there is no wrong way to collect. We are just simply talking about what are the trends of the market from what we know.
Yeah. And I think it's also worth saying that value is, at a certain point, becomes subjective, especially on the harder to find and one-of-one items. What I find is on the even the short print stuff, and when I say short print, I'm talking 50, 100, 200 cards. Yeah. There's usually enough of an indication from eBay sold listings, and rightly or wrongly, eBay is kind of where most of the action is in terms of a lot of that market now. So it's kind of, in the same way that you go online and you want to look for something, you go to Google. So so that's kind of, not a beast of our making. That just happens to be the way of things. So
Yeah.
when I'm kind of looking at values of stuff that, there's, it's a base card or a chase card, and there's more than one of them basically.
Yeah.
And there's maybe more than 5 or 10, or, once you get into the 50s, that's when it becomes a lot easier to get a gauge of, okay, what is the market doing with that card? And you can look at eBay, and you can usually get a pretty good sense of it. And the
Right.
way that I advise people do it, and this is buyers and sellers, is based on how the retro video gaming community in the UK does it a lot on Facebook, which is if you're selling something, have a look on eBay sold, take at least 3 to 5 sold listings.
Yep.
And it might be tricky to find, as an example, I'm going to pull this off the top of my head, a Battle Spectra gem from 2016. Okay.
Yeah.
It might be tricky to find many examples of one of those cards. However, I looked this morning and I could see 9 Battle Spectra gem sold listings. So
Yeah.
I take that, I average it, and I lop off maybe 10 to 15% to account for eBay fees and the fact that shipping may have been included. And that's
Agreed.
kind of the rule of thumb that I use, and a lot of different collecting circles use that aren't
Yeah.
trading cards. And that works pretty well, but ultimately that all goes out the window if someone sees it and it is the last card they need for their set, or the last card they
Agreed.
need for their character subset, or whatever it may be. And they might be willing to pay just a touch more for it. So, it's a rule of thumb, but it doesn't cover all scenarios. So I just wanted to put that note in about sort of valuations. I think where you
Agreed.
get into the investment side of things, it becomes, well, there's a couple of issues at play there. There's the scarcity of it, so whether it's a 1 of 1 or 1 of 5 or 1 of 10.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that comes into play, especially with comics, is the condition. So a lot of the comics that you've talked about, the ones that are 1.5, 2.5, you're talking about those being slabbed and encased in a plastic tomb and
Yeah.
never to be read or handled again. Now, I'm a raw comic collector. For me, a comic is to be read, loved, handled. The first thing I do when I pick up any book that's older than 1980 is I smell it. And that's a big deal for me, to do that.
I mean, it's definitely an experience to be there. I was just watching something where they went to the Library of Congress to look at the first appearance of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And you can go there, and an anonymous donor donated most of the pages from that book, if not all, with the cover and everything. And you can just see all the intricacies. So you can see all the smaller details. And there is something archival and historical about touching and holding and reading a comic book as a milestone as that is.
Exactly. Now, the other part to that is interesting that you said that, and we didn't plan this, but one of the main arguments for the older books and the scarcer books, like Amazing Fantasy 15 that you mentioned, is the fact that those things weren't meant to still be around. They weren't made to still be here in 2019. They were printed on paper that biodegrades. They were printed on paper that goes yellow, goes brittle, effectively biodegrades over time, because of the acid in the paper. They were short print throwaway items that cost 10 cents, 12 cents. And so for a lot of those key books, it's actually a case of preservation.
Yeah.
And, actually preserving it, because if all you wanted to do was read the stories, you can get a reprint of those. You can get
or an omnibus or whatever.
Exactly. Which is absolutely fine. So I personally wouldn't have the dollar even for a low grade Amazing Spider-Man 1, Amazing Fantasy 15, and I've got Marvel Milestones reprints of both of them, so I'm set on that side of things.
And you're good.
But a lot of collectors, a lot of the later comics, even new books, people are slabbing straight away. with no intention of reading them in a lot of cases, largely because a lot of the stuff coming out these days is variant covers, and you can actually get it new, already slabbed,
Yep.
or signed or remarked.
Yep.
Okay, so that is the closest thing to me to the whole grading area of cards, because when you do that, all you're actually talking about is how it looks from the front and how it looks from the back.
Right. Which is the major difference.
Exactly.
There's nothing being concealed in the case.
Exactly.
So when you grade a card, you're having the full experience other than the tactile experience, which, to be honest, as a collector, you don't handle a card, if you want to keep it nice. You encase it the moment you get it. You're always seeing that. And if you want to see the card bare, which sometimes it's extremely beautiful and it's a great thing to do, you are not having that touch experience with a card like you would with a comic book, which you are reading and handling and so forth. So grading cards does make more sense in terms of that being a more valuable part of the market, because you do have that divide with comic books.
Yeah, and we will talk about card grading.
Yeah, we'll go into that another.
Yeah.
And we'll have some guests on there as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's some big questions that always happen with collectors when you're talking about investments, from what we've heard. Let me just get out the first one, which is collectors who haven't been in the hobby for quite a long time, who are from the 90s and have their cards from the 90s and all that kind of stuff. I see a lot of posts where they'll post a Chase foil card from 1990 or 94 or an X-Men foil card or something of that nature, and they'll think it's worth a lot of money. Just so you guys know, just so everyone knows, all the collectors, it's really about serial numbers and one of ones. And you're looking at low print runs. So if you wanted to know your value of your cards, you kind of have to see what the print run is. So for like 92, 93, and 94, the print run boxes wise was 350,000 boxes. And that's official.
Marvel Masterpieces you're talking.
Marvel Masterpiece specifically.
Yeah,
okay. Those are the numbers. Yeah, I picked up those numbers because Marvel Masterpiece, I don't know, and I wonder, Ian, like, what series do you think is the valuable series?
Marvel Masterpieces?
In terms of Marvel cards.
96 of the original OG5 is because it was the shortest print.
It's the shortest print, and we calculated. Well, people have calculated. A good friend of ours, Armand, and a couple of people on Blowout have done the calculations. It looks like for 1996 there were 30,000 boxes, and the years prior it was 350,000. 95, they're thinking 140,000 boxes, but that's rumored. So we're not quite sure. But for 96, that was the first time they really put a premium thing into action, and no one bought it. Not a lot of people went into it because it was the most expensive set to have come out. And you're looking at a Marvel Masterpiece set every year from 92. So people were kind of losing interest at that point.
And the industry had just kind of gone tits up.
Yeah.
That 90s implosion.
Yeah. So 96 is definitely what you're looking at here in terms of value.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too. And then with the introduction of 2016, which is something I wanted to talk to you about as well. Okay, so I'm trying to think.
While you're gathering your thoughts there, it's worth mentioning that the more valuable cards from the sets that followed in the late 90s, because there weren't as many sets produced for a good 5 years, for around that late 90s, early noughties period, really until Rittenhouse picked up the baton, which I think Complete Avengers might have been their first one, which was the first, and that was when there were a lot more sketches in the market.
Right.
Previous to that, you had 98, you had Marvel Creators Collection, then you had a Silver Age set.
Right,
and those were the first sets to have sketchographs. So that's where you first start seeing I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that's where you started to see the one-of-one artworks and the
Yeah.
one-of-one signatures actually going into packs.
Yeah.
I think before that there'd been some Jim Lee signatures that were pack inserted on some sets. I think you mentioned a couple of episodes back, Joe Quesada had some cards. So,
Yeah.
there had been a limited number, and, there are always exceptions, like 1995, the Mirage cards.
Right.
They're pretty tough to find.
Very hard to find.
So what you're basically seeing here is scarcity and a direct correlation to price. So that's not a new economic kind of model, supply and
Not at
demand.
all. But it was in 2016 for Marvel Masterpieces where you're seeing serialized numbers. Because in 07, you have 13,000 boxes, which is extremely low compared to 92, 350,000.
Hang on. Back it up. 13,000.
13,000 boxes for 207.
Sure as heck felt like a lot more than that when I was looking at all the sketches. Yeah.
Isn't that it? And it's fascinating because people talk about why it's not more expensive. So that kind of brings over the other thing about this, which is original art trading cards versus reused imagery for trading cards. And that takes a lot into account when you're thinking about value and investment, right? Who's the artist? What is the original art? Is the card featuring original artwork, or is it featuring reproduced artwork or artwork from comic books and so forth?
Yeah.
And that seems to be the big discrepancy, because from 07 to 2018, the boxes are in like the tens thousand, like 2016 is 10,800 boxes.
Estimated.
We're not 100% sure. Estimated, that's around how many boxes were done.
It's worth saying that these are pretty educated guesses, although we don't have the actual internal memos from the upper deck offices, because they probably shredded them, and I jest, of course, but
I don't know why we don't get those numbers. I don't know why it's national security. It seems very bizarre, but you can tell by the serial numbers and how many cards were released. They're probably not giving out those numbers because of eBay or all these different addendum. I don't know.
You can work backwards. Anyway, it's a pretty educated guess. But the interesting thing is that set was specifically produced in order to drive that rarity factor.
Yeah.
So when they didn't add the serial numbers just for a laugh, they put them on there because they knew that would drive people nuts in a good way.
Yeah. I agree. I think the only thing the numbers have done, the only negative thing the numbers have done from what I've seen is upset collectors who haven't been in the game for a while, right? Because they want a full set.
Yeah.
And then they have to decide, am I going to have a full purple set, which is cheaper? You know what I mean? Those color variants. So you have those tiers that come into play when you're dealing with set collectors. And that seems to be the biggest upset, really. Yeah. So I was going to say 3 things that make a set more valuable would be, in my opinion, is going to be a low print run.
Yeah.
The original artist's work. So not reproduced art, even though I think reproduced art on some cards is gorgeous, and not knocking those at all. And the third one is, who's the artist they're highlighting. I think that's the big one, because that was the pretty big divide for 2018 with some collectors that that didn't like particular things about 2018. And there's other factors that go into that we don't have to get into the whole card drama craziness. But I think those are the three things really you're looking at when you're talking about value for sets and for particular cards.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's interesting watching what happened with 2018, because 2018 was clearly, with a few exceptions, virtually the same set construct as 2016.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
With, in my opinion, equally high profile,
100%
talented, top of the game, industry leading contemporary artist of fantasy artwork. So for they've chosen wisely.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about 2018 is how quickly the market. There's a couple of things that happened. So the set broke physically, and we assumed on group that half of the product was released physically on October the 31st, 2018. So that's boxes of product going to dealers, going to stores.
Right.
In the US and in Canada and bizarrely China and the Far East. Not the UK. Sad face. Anyway, hey, it's probably for the best. If I could, I'd have been living on the street recording this from a shopping cart. If that
From a little.
And it got released, and very quickly the pattern followed what people were expecting it to do based on 2016. So a lot of the prices, and then around the time just before EPACS and around the time of EPACS, the one-of-one printing plates really started to go through the roof.
Yeah, they did.
And I'm wow, and it happened very quickly. And you know, I remember plates when the product was first breaking going 75, 100, 125, 150.
Yeah, especially for more like not high tier, more like mid-level characters.
Yeah.
And you know, character profile is something to talk about in a little bit, but
yeah. And then fast forward, you know, lower tier, less well-known characters, printing plates still best part of $200 in a lot of cases. And as for the short print, this is the interesting thing for me. Okay, there are exactly the same number of printing plates, whether it's card 2, tier 1, I can't remember the name of the character on card 2, as there are for card 89,
right,
which is Wolverine or Spider-Man. I can't remember which.
Right.
So it's in no way relative to the number of cards that printing plate printed.
No. When you go into one-of-ones, there's no tier anymore.
Exactly.
And a lot of people tend to price one-of-ones on tier prices, which is maddening.
Which is interesting. However, maddening as it may be, people are paying it because
I paid it.
Exactly.
Surfer's a high tier character, and I don't want to talk about it. I'm still
exactly. And Norin is currently sitting in his shopping cart outside of Walmart recording this episode because of
my fetal position. Excuse
me. Rocking wildly, muttering to himself. But the interesting thing is that to me that immediately ties it back to the character collector. So I know, for example, and you know that I say in group. So listen, if first of all, I've got to stop saying listen on episodes because I've listened to episodes 1, 2, and 3.
It's already happening.
And my goodness, I'm sure there's a few folk who want to slap me right now. Secondly, my train of thought has left the station. What was I just talking about?
So we're talking about character collectors. I'm looking at the groups, and the people in the groups we're talking about are the Facebook groups.
Bingo. Thank you. I'm just checking that you were paying attention.
You're good. I was.
So there's a few guys in the group who are mad for certain characters. Like there's a guy who's really mad on Man-Thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a song by the B-52s. There's a guy who's really keen on Black Bolt.
Yeah.
There's a guy
which has an amazing collection.
Yeah. And
both of them do, yeah.
Some of these collectors have managed to track down through all the odds almost all of the printing plates. For those
close.
cards.
I mean, very close. We had one guy. I don't know if he's in the group. I don't know if he ever joined, but we know of him. He collected all 8 of the Beast plates for Marvel Masterpiece 2016.
Wow, I don't remember seeing those.
You didn't see those? Yeah, that was insane. He was getting them. Him and his brother were doing it, and I think I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I'm pretty sure he did all 8, and it's one of the only full 8s we know of.
I don't think he's in the group because I'd remember that.
No, I don't think he came. I don't know. I don't think so. Well, I know Jonathan is a huge Spider-Man, Jonathan Siegel, right? Is that how you say his name?
Yes.
Yeah, huge Spider-Man collector, and he's collected
Nice
quite
guy.
a lot. Nice guy, super nice. Has collected many of the Spider-Mans from MM 2016.
Yeah.
And there's character collectors for Venom, Psylocke, Justin Amont. There's a lot of people out there who really have their main characters.
Green, James
Yeah, James. Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce your name, James, but
yeah, sorry, James.
Flame
But
is
he
how
has
I
a great collection too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I'm lucky
Yeah.
that 2018 didn't have Black Cat in it.
I'm so jealous.
Because well, thanks for that, Simone. I really appreciate that. You've saved me. You've saved me having to part with a kidney. But by the time I realised what was happening with 2016, the barn door horse bolted. I was too late. And someone did sell one of the Black Cat Marvel Masterpieces 2016 plates on eBay recently, and they put it for a 4-figure sum. And it went best offer, but it was a hefty 4-figure sum, so it would have still gone for a 4-figure sum. I'm talking like $2,000, $3,000.
What color?
Oh, I can't remember. It was a plate. That's all I know.
That's nice.
And I'm like, okay, fair enough. And I'm not the only Black Cat collector out there. And it's I'm not going to pretend
you're the
that
only
I've
one
got,
in my book, Ian.
Oh, bless you for saying so, sir. But on a serious note, it's not my right to have every Black Cat card that's out there. In the same way. Hey,
See, I do
thank
think,
you, thank you.
I think I should have all the Silver Surfers, and you should have all the Black Cats.
We need to march on.
There we go.
What do you call it? Capitol
I have
Hill.
the banner
Is that where
right
you go?
now. That's it. I think that's the place people are marching.
That's where you go. That's where you go. In the UK, we march somewhere else.
It really is. So in terms of tier stuff, characters really matter. Really, you're looking at characters that are fan favorites, characters that are kind of have the most history. Wolverine and Spider-Man, those are high tiers. They always place them high tier. But characters like Magic are pretty sought after. Other characters, and that's a tier 1 card, and her plates were going for a pretty, in the 3 figures for plates. And so was her auto.
Cloak and Dagger as well. Cloak and Dagger, which is a great card, has a major TV series out at the moment.
Yeah. So you're looking at characters. That is something to really consider: is what character are you looking at there for the price, and that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And how deep you want that rabbit hole to be.
Yeah,
I think if you're going to dive in on 2016, 2018 Marvel Masterpieces on the same vein as Marvel Premier, these are premium sets. They are made, they're not entry-level sets. They are made for collectors. They are made for exactly the collector mentality that Chase is after. All 8 printing plates of a card. And they, it is rightly or wrongly, it is a business model that works because they make this product and majority of the time it goes. I think as big as 2016 and 2018 Marvel Masterpieces were, they're not the biggest sets that have come out over the last couple of years. If I'm thinking of Fleer Ultra X-Men 2018, it's just vast. I mean, I remember scrolling through the checklist, and I woke up 2 days later and I was still scrolling. It was just crazy.
Oh, those sets are. So is the Spider-Man one, and like a lot of those Spider-Man cards. So the crazy thing about those Fleer Ultra sets, which always really intrigues me, is the rarity of the sketch cards. So if we're talking about value, those sketch cards from those particular series, in my opinion, I think are extremely scarce and extremely difficult to find, and have a premium price to them, or at least they should. Because, and here's another thing to think about with eBay. For instance, like if you search, which I just did, 2016 Marvel Masterpiece autographs, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and at the time of this recording, maybe 10 of those cards even on eBay. And they're all 3 figures, unless they're buybacks, which they're $100. You're looking at
some characters.
Of some characters, right?
Yeah, the buybacks.
The
buybacks.
So
for those who may not know what they did with 2016 Marvel Masterpieces, I think this was the first time they did buybacks, because they did it with Fleer Ultra X-Men 2018, but I think the first set to have them was 2016 Marvel Masterpieces.
I feel like the 2016 is the marker.
Well, they kind
premium,
of
right.
Well, I think so, and I think because so much worked, they've carried on doing it.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, it makes sense to do it. But that's where the buyback. So I think we talked on a previous episode about the fact that the buybacks were cards from the 90s where the manufacturer Upper Deck had literally bought them back from the market, stamped them,
and
we
did talk about this.
So that's fine.
Yeah.
What I don't think we touched on is that in 2016 example, because it was the same main artist, Joe Jusko, it was he signed 10 of each of them, and they went into packs with a little COA, certificate of authenticity.
15. I think it's 15 of
each. Is it 15?
Buyback. 15.
15. Good. I'm glad one of us is using the computer whilst the other one talks, because I can't do both.
Try just to double check.
No, it's a good job you're here. Otherwise, we'll have people writing in. Were we to have a physical postal address, we'll have to start thinking of a name for our letter column. The idea of a podcast having a letter column is just blowing my mind. Anyway, and so on those, the ones that you've seen on eBay are probably not characters that are as sought after, because the interesting thing about 1992 is that they didn't put the more popular characters in certain parts of the set. They didn't short print them in any way. So it was a pretty open playing field. But of course, fast forward to 2016, there had been exactly 15 signed buybacks of each character out there. But it's telling that the ones that people are going after, the characters that people are going after, those are the buybacks that are going for the highest money. I remember seeing sitting here in front of my laptop, seeing not long after 2016 broke, seeing a Black Cat signed buyback, and I think it was about $60. And I hesitated, and when I looked either later that day or the following day, it had gone. And I don't think I saw any again, certainly not at that price, and certainly not for a long time. The last time I looked, they were about $200.
No, they're I'm looking at them now. So sorry, there's more than 10. There's maybe like 30 of these. I was looking at sold listings so we can double check prices.
Oh, I'm with you.
I'm with you. Again, buyback wise, there's more buybacks here of lesser characters, and like maybe like 20, and maybe there's like 10 or 15 2016 Joe Jusko signed cards on here, and they're all three figures. From what we're looking at here. So this is definitely something to look at in terms of value of what's on eBay and so forth.
But at the same time, I've kind of got to figure that the people who bought those bought them at a lower rate, possibly, and I've got them on there, and they're sat there at a high buy now. So do they just sit there at that high buy now because the market's not paying it? Or do they just let them sit there and renew or good till cancelled until someone who is willing to pay it comes along?
So, and this is funny because I've been thinking about this a lot. Not a lot, but enough. Where here's the thing to also think about. The group of collectors for the cards is so small.
Yep.
You can't throw a rock. Look, if someone buys a sketch card of a particular character, you give me 24 hours, you give me 10 hours. I can either track down who has it or know where it disappeared into what black hole that the collector decided to keep it.
I'll hold you to that.
It's that small. It's true. It's
I'll
true.
I'll send you a list of cards after this.
I mean, some of them you really can tell. I mean, some people, some cards vanish and it's like they're bought by like a supernatural entity and you're like, where the hell did these things go? But most cards I can track down, to be honest. I can see where they're going or who's picking them up. And I think as you get more and more into the hobby, it's that small of a hobby that you kind of get that kind of knowledge. I mean, we know who's going for what. We're
Yep.
surprised to see
Yep.
certain cards still sitting there on eBay. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think one of the interesting things going back to 2018 Marvel Masterpieces is that with e-packs, it went. That's right, because I was talking about that, and we kind of segued. So pulling it back to that thread, it when e-packs released, it just went crazy, and I think it's probably the fairest way to say it, because Marvel Masterpieces collectors on Facebook, it was the number of posts. I can look at the graph, and the number of posts in that 11-day period.
Yep.
That it was. I think it was sold out in super fast time.
Yeah.
Based on e-packs, and the number of new members as well who came into the group, which is fantastic. Welcome all. Stick around, those of you who are still there. And it was wonderful. And then very quickly, people kind of got to where they wanted to with the set, and kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm kind of done now, and a lot of people had achieved whatever they set out to achieve. Some people had side quests, as I guess you call them.
I wasn't gonna collect this, but
yeah, exactly. I'm currently guilty of that one. Hello, purples. But now the interesting thing is that finite. I don't think that necessarily the market has. I don't think the market has crashed for 2018. I think there are a couple of things going on. I think one of them is that most of the people who went out there searching for it at the beginning, who were ready for it, who went for it, either have got everything they want, and have kind of like, okay, that's fine, thank you very much, or have run out of money.
People are broke, man. That's no joke.
I'm guilty of the latter part.
A lot of people are
slowed
guilty
right
of
down,
it.
and
because there was a period where cards were popping up on eBay that should not be that low.
Yeah.
That should not have any business being that low.
Exactly.
And people lucked out who had the cash.
Yeah.
But people got flushed by the series because it's all 2016.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to miss out on the 2018s
exactly
that they would want.
And
so
I'm as guilty of that as anyone.
Me too.
I went I'm not sure I can use the expression I was going to use on a clean rated podcast.
Trying to stay as clean as possible.
I went. I'm gonna change it a bit. I went knee deep on.
Nice.
Thanks. I went knee deep on waist deep even. I mean, crikey, I was up to my chest on 2018 because I knew I wanted the gold. I wanted 1 to 100 gold at the very least. And what I mean by that is the gold signature parallel of tiers 1, 2, and 3, which was relatively straightforward. Tier 4, which took a little bit of doing, and the gold gallery, which is 91 to 100. I did that alongside base 1 to 81, etc., etc. But I knew very clearly what I wanted to do. But the prices of those, with the exception of probably tier 4 gold signature, the prices of those dropped massively when e-packs came out because all of a sudden there was a lot more product on the market. And no one knew for sure exactly how much would come out on e-packs. So
no, we weren't, and that was the freaky part. A lot of people were speculating that they were going to hold a lot. A lot of people were like, "No, they're not. They're just going to give what's left or whatever."
Yeah, exactly.
So it was very much divided. Yeah.
So we kind of speculated that 50 got released physically, 50 got held for e-packs, and I think that given how little physical product there seems to be now, I think that's a reasonable guesstimate. I don't see much, and the boxes are starting to go up in price as well.
And I wonder if the boxes will. I wonder if the percentage will change. I wonder if more things would be held on e-pack as opposed to physical.
Potentially.
And, and to all the listeners out there, how rough it is to find any kind of physical product to any of these cards, unless you have a dealer at a sports memorabilia store who's an upper deck, whatever it's called, right? Who can buy the product for you. Or they might have 1 or 2 boxes off to the side. They're nowhere to be found. They're that premium. And it makes sense if Upper Deck starts maybe reserving these for e-pack. I don't know if they will. I think the Marvel Weeklies are an interesting indication of what they're thinking. A little insight into how they're going to start dealing with rarity for the lesser lesser non-original art. I don't know. I think there's some interesting things happening here, and I'm interested to see how the market
Mm,
bodes when
mm.
that ratio starts going a little more to the digital side.
It
And
is in.
digital just means that you can buy a box online,
Yeah,
see all the cards in the box, and then have
yeah,
them sent to you physically. They are
yeah,
not digital cards,
yeah.
just so you guys know.
Or not. Depending on, because you kind of,
Depending, right?
yeah,
Sorry,
you're
depending.
seeing what
Yeah,
you get. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
See, the interesting thing. So going just let me finish this train of thought on 2018. Mirage cards before and even during EPAC's release were about $100.
Pretty much.
You can now pick them up for 30, 40. You get 50 on a lucky day.
And they're rare. They're not.
Yeah,
They're not super. They're not.
there
They're not easy to
are
find cards, but
50 or
they.
99, one of the two. Someone did a sum
I think it's
based on how
99.
many, because they're not numbered. But
No, they're not numbered, but there's
if you
one per
work
box
back, yeah, if you
or
work
one per case.
that's it. So if you did the collation
That's right.
based on the numbering of what is numbered, you can work out how many cases, and then you can. There's mass involved. It's the whole Russell Crowe beautiful mind where there's equations in the air. We're back to that. I just go cross-eyed, but people like Armand on the group is able
Yeah,
to work
they
that
go.
out pretty quick.
Yeah, he knows how to do that
So yeah,
really well.
he's a boffin.
Yeah.
So it's very, and even 2 weeks back when we recorded episode 1, I remember telling you before we started rolling that I'd
Yeah.
seen a silver spectrum, and that's
Mm.
what the name is for where the artist who did the set has signed the card, actually physically signed the card. So
Right. And it has like a
there's only
rainbow
yeah,
silvery border around the card, right?
yeah. Around the numbering, I
Around the
believe,
numbering as well.
on the back. So they're numbered 1 to 10. There's 10 of them for the base card. There's 10 of them for the what if variant. So there's 20 signed copies of each character,
Right.
basically.
And for the Joe Juiceco, when it was the buyback, you'd have the 20 plus the
Plus the
15
15
buyback.
buybacks from the
Right. Now
earlier
you
set.
don't have buybacks in MM18, so
No.
technically signatures in MM18
Yeah.
are rare than
And
MM16.
there was one on, and it wasn't a high character. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. There was one listed by now on eBay a few weeks back at $39 by now, and I was like, and I think it might have even had free shipping.
It was
And I looked at it and I was like,
what if?
yeah. And I looked at it and I was like, wow, that's a little bit cray cray.
$4 shipping, $40. Try in 3 out of 10 silver. What if
Yeah,
auto 2018?
yeah. I haven't looked since. I'm guessing it sold. I don't know. I'm sure it did. I'm sure someone would have picked them up because I know that there are collectors who are going after the full set signed. Who are
Yeah,
going
I mean,
after those
there's
cards.
plenty to pick up
So,
under $100 right now.
yeah, exactly. So I think that those collectors that are going for that are probably already got them, or
Yeah.
they're waiting for a price that they like.
Again, it's a small hobby.
Yeah.
So when people get what they want, the prices drop. The problem is
Mm,
it depends what you're going for.
mm,
It depends what you're going for. And that's really, going back to the main focus of the episode, that's the trickiest part about the investment
yeah.
angle on trading cards is that you need to know who the collectors are and what they're going for. And
Yeah.
just to give a little insight into this, I'm pretty vocal about who I collect.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of collectors have told me privately how that's a bit of a mistake to be that open about who you collect because you will
Mm,
start seeing premium prices. And if they weren't right, sketch cards for the surfer are definitely
mm-hmm.
premium prices because, and I'm being honest, because of the 4 or 5 people who
Mm,
were fighting over them,
mm,
people are looking at the past sell prices
mm,
and marking them up. And now a lot of
mm.
people are sitting on cards and have them at $200 prices for sketch cards. And no one's picking up because either I'm not interested
Yeah.
or the 3 or 4 other people who are into it
Yeah.
are not interested in that
Yeah.
specific character.
I remember when I was buying a lot of Rittenhouse Black Cats back in the day. It's less than 10 years ago. Anyway, and I actually had a couple of people that I would regularly buy from as sets broke,
Hmm.
who pretty much told me that there was a premium going on there
Yeah.
because of the character and because they knew that I wasn't the only guy after after it.
No, and Black Cat has a pretty good core amount of collectors.
Exactly.
Probably a little more than the Surfer, I would say.
I don't, you know,
sure.
there's not actually. There are some collectors of Black Cat from back in the Rittenhouse day, and to this day, I'm still not entirely sure who they are, or even if they're still in the hobby.
No, there's some people who are completely off the grid.
There was one guy, he went for a lot of hot female characters and always seemed to be able to snap up the even before they were visible to anyone, they were gone. So
And
he obviously knew dealers and was able to get in on them when the cases were broke before they hit eBay. So they disappeared.
And it kind of, I don't know, some collectors, obviously no one here or no one in the group, everyone in the group's extremely kind and not misogynistic or any weird stuff. I mean, it is majority guys, but women of Marvel, not the card series, but the ladies of Marvel, those cards tend to sell a lot. But I don't know exactly what I'm saying here. In terms of investment, collect what you like, because you don't know what character is going to be popular, what character is not going to be popular.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important part of this conversation. Some characters do demand a premium, but that could be just because at the time you have a lot of particular collectors who are collecting that particular character.
I think so. And I think I've not done a poll on it. My sense is that the hobby is probably largely male.
I think so.
Yeah, and weirdly, I'm not sure if that's something to be proud of or not, but I don't think it sways massively from the stereotypical imagery of comic book guy from The Simpsons.
I think what's nice about the group is that we haven't had any. It's been very welcoming and very kind, and we do have which I wouldn't be part of the group if it wasn't like that. In all seriousness,
exactly.
You know what I mean? If it ever went like that,
yeah,
I ban and all that. I would never tolerate that ever.
No,
because I think that's just really kind of gross.
But just because that's kind of seems to be the demographic makeup of the hobby doesn't mean that the hobby behaves in a certain way that you
especially
is what I think we're trying to say.
Not necessarily an art group at all, so I mean, I think that's really kind of
absolutely
nice.
Not. And there's some members in the group who are incredible advocates for the hobby, I think, who I would love to get on, who just happen to have been born a different gender, so to me or you. So and we will talk to those people in due course.
Yes.
I think there's so many different ways to talk about investment here, in terms of what are you in it for? Are you in it to collect what you want, and then you've got it and it's lovely, and because it's a sought after character and a sought after product that it would always kind of hold a value, and of that being kind of comfort to you, which I think is a psychological thing. I'm sure there are studies about it. Exactly. Then there's the other side of it where you are buying specifically because you know that if you buy it and hold on to it, you can then resell it.
And I think here's the third thing, and this will probably be the thing that starts wrapping up the episode. I don't know how far we're in.
Yeah, no, I think we'll probably wrap.
This is the last topic, and I think this is something that affects everybody and is extremely important. And when I talk, and we're going to be talking about flipping, and what I'm talking about flipping is not from flippers who just collect to sell as a way of making a living, which is, I think a little insane. That's my personal opinion. I think the hobby is set up in a way for us collectors to fund our own hobby with cards we collect. And I think that's a big part of it.
People who are collectors, who kind of surf a little bit. I knew you'd like that reference. Surf the market in order to achieve their collecting aims, but are still passionate collectors of the hobby first and foremost.
Right, which can burn you.
Which can, and it's burnt me. I've tried it, and I've always muffed it. So it's not something I really do.
You can't really know.
But also versus those who just buy it break it and sell it in order to make revenue. That it could be any product. It just happens
Any
to be,
product. Yeah.
that.
And in some way, I love those people because I'll have access to the card. So,
Yeah.
they're buying tons of boxes, and I get what they're doing. But
Yeah,
at the same
there's less
time,
emotional investment there, I guess. I see that in I see it in other niche hobbies, like I see it in steelbook collecting.
I can
Blu-ray
imagine.
steelbooks.
That's interesting.
That's massive on it. I've seen it in video game collecting as well, which is another
I've looked into that. It's really cool.
Yeah, well, the older stuff is one thing. That's fine. There are people who buy and sell retro video games,
Yeah,
and
the antiques and stuff like
which is great. But there are new limited edition. I think they're actually called limited edition. The company that does
yeah, they are.
PS4 games, and there are limited numbers. So they, like steelbooks or like anything else that's produced in short print quantities, like
They'll
our
buy it
trading
in
cards,
bulk.
there are people who do that. And in the same way that is in, you get people who will buy tickets to a live event.
Right, and scalp the tickets. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
Well, and it happened.
and that's existed since Roman times.
Right, and the real thing that maybe other collectors who
Probably
are listening
before.
to this, who have gotten into this, was Amiibos and Funko Pops. Right, those were big things that were happening. There were people buying up chases, or people were buying exclusive Amiibos and then selling their.
Or any of the action figures, even
or
earlier
any
than
of the
that.
action figures. Yeah, it's a
Some of the
pretty
Star
bold.
Wars stuff where you'd have stuff that was one per case. One of the other podcasts that I'm a huge fan of. The guy there tells a story about the fact that he would go around to 5 or 6 different Toys R Us and other stores in the New Jersey area,
just start picking up
and buy in and buy loads of stuff, and then they would flip it.
Yeah, I think, and for me, the reason I get excited about talking investments, especially for this episode, and for me personally, when I talk about investment, I'm not talking about investment to make money off things that I'm not emotionally interested in. I'm talking about, okay, like for instance, right? Here's a card I'm into. If I see a card I'm into and I'm like, it's $150. I really like it right now. I like to have it in my collection. I want it part of my collection. I'll be like, but maybe if I see someone better, like if I see an interpretation of a character I like better down the line, or I want a different card, can I trade up? Right? Am I going to take this $150 sketch card, right? Or like, for instance, Justin just bought this beautiful Ray Dillion AP Magic for a 325 Marvel Masterpiece Series 1. It's a sick looking card. And I saw this card before and I had the option of buying it, but I didn't. And it was only because I looked at the price and I looked at the card and I was like, that's probably going to be the most. So I'm not seeing any profit to fund a crazier expense, or can I trade up? Which I definitely think. I think that Magic card will always have a life where someone will want that particular card. And that's what I mean about investments from the hobby point of view, at least from the point of view of my own. That's how I look at it.
Do you remember seeing that meme online of the distracted boyfriend, it's called, where there's the guy and he's walking along and he's looking back at the
girl passing by,
the girl passing by. That's kind of the image I had in my head. The girl passing by is the sketch card.
For the group, actually.
And we'll do that on
let's do that.
On the episode tasting notes. We'll crudely Photoshop that together, and you can get amusement on that. Listen, we've got a wrap for this week, folks. This is juicy. We could talk about this all day. The one thing I'll end on there is interesting. Your take on investment there. My take on investment there is emotional investment in the hobby and the character that you're collecting, and the sense of satisfaction you'll get from being able to sort of achieve whatever your aim was, be it to fill that 9-card page of sketches from a certain set, or to be able to get all 4 of the plates. I think and that that for me is kind of priceless. That's what everyone in the group is in it for, and that's kind of what the hobby is about. So, and it doesn't have to be a card that's financially worth a lot of money.
Not at all.
I bought a dollar bin sealed polybagged magazine from the 90s on eBay last week, and it came, and I didn't know this was in there, and I opened the polybag because I was kind of wanted to read the magazine. and inside was a Marvel Masterpieces trading card that, although I own, it was a promo, and I didn't know it had come with that magazine. I was like, it's like finding treasure.
That's pretty cool.
I didn't expect to find that. I already own it. I'll probably give it away to someone free when they buy something. I'll include it as a freebie. I'll pay it forward. But it was just a delightful thing to find, and that that feeling of finding that's the investment for me, I think.
Agreed. No, I mean, I agree. And that's how I feel about my personal collection. Seeing, like, having all 4 plates, that's, or having your rainbow 9-page. And that might be a cool episode to think about, right? How do you design your specific wants in your collection?
Well, collecting goals.
Yeah, collecting goals.
Collecting goals. That's definitely one. Another thing I want to talk about is hidden gems, like that promo I just talked about.
That's pretty cool.
May not be worth much in the market that we've probably been touching on, which is
right.
Let's be clear. This is
extreme.
It's the thin end of the wedge there. It's not the whole market. It's just
not at all.
Just something that we wanted to talk about and get it off our collective chests, I guess. There's a hell of a lot more to talk about, and we will. So, Norrin, it's been beautiful as ever.
Gorgeous. I'm excited.
As the music swells behind us. We'll see you next week, folks. Enjoy collecting.
Enjoy collecting.
Thanks for listening to the Marvel Card Collectors podcast. You can subscribe via our home on anchor.fm/MCCP. Leave us a message via that link with questions, comments, or just to say hi, and we may even play on the show. We'll also be on iTunes and most other main podcast platforms soon. On Facebook, you can find Marvel Card Collectors Worldwide by searching MCCW, and Marvel Masterpieces Collectors by searching MMC. On Instagram, find us at MMCollectors and at SketchCardHive. The great music we use is called Rocket Power by Kevin MacLeod. Thanks to the collectors, artists, and creators who support the Marvel Cards Fan Collective. We'll see you next time, and remember, it's a small hobby, but a fun one. Make mine Marvel, and enjoy collecting.